Hey everyone, hope you guys are well. Hopefully the stream is live as well. But yeah, hope you guys are doing well today. Pretty happy with a little bit of a later deadline, so it's going to be 1:30 p.m. UK time. I've already made one move, which is DCL to Wood. Made that move last night, as I sort of said on Twitter. And yeah, that's sort of the main dilemma I think this week, which would be on captaincy as well. Between maybe Salah, Son, and Solanke, I think is sort of the options that we have on the table for my team. Some people probably dealing with the likes of Holland as well, and a couple other things. Jason's question was best 1 week punt for defenders. If you're just looking for a 1 week punt, I mean, to be honest, I quite still like going for a Spurs defender. Alternatively, I think going for a Mazraoui or an Ait Nouri is also totally fine. Lewis starts. I don't think Lewis necessarily starts. I just didn't really want to make a decision on a defender because I wasn't sure about, first of all, whether there were any defenders this week that actually had a good game week that I think have really good minutes going forwards, and that includes someone like Dalot. And yeah, that's sort of the conclusion I reached ultimately. It might be the case that we get a Lewis leak on the stream, and I could react to that potentially, and maybe the move that I would make in that instance is Lewis to Dalot potentially, but I still think it's very unlikely that I'm going to do that. What do I do for work? So I'm a sort of big four accountant. FPL Jason, hope you're doing well. Aaron says you can't afford Dalot, so you're going for Mazraoui instead. I do think that going out of Leif Davis makes a bit more sense because my hope is that Rico Lewis can still start games in the future. It's not like he's suddenly exiled out of the team. So the way I see it is we probably weren't going to play Leif Davis or Rico Lewis for the next few game weeks anyway. So when I look at, for example, Rico Lewis here, you know, it's unlikely that I want to be playing Davis versus Spurs, versus Liverpool, even maybe arguably versus Forest, but I think he could play that game. So starting from, let's say, 14, I think Rico Lewis has some games, when you look at the style of the games and sort of the matchup there, that I think he could definitely play and start in. Most likely Forest and Palace are both those sorts of games, and then something like Man United at home, that could arguably be, once again, a Walker game. Same with Aston Villa too. So that's sort of my thoughts. I still think that I could play Lewis quite a fair bit in the future. But Davis clearly has decent games. The issue, as I said, within my own team selection video is that ultimately the Ipswich defense is really poor. So it's also hard to see myself wanting to play Leif Davis on a lot of those games if he starts. And Dunk, crucially, actually has a really good run of games here where I don't mind playing him as long as he's fit for Southampton at home. So with Dunk within an international break, with hopefully getting some minutes maybe versus Bournemouth, 13 plus is that sort of run of games for Dunk that I think is going to be quite useful for my team. And maybe I'll still have to make another defender decision, but I'd like to do Son to Saka next week. Let's see. So Steve says, would this be crazy? Watkins, Diaz, Trent to Isak, Cunha, Salah. I don't think it's necessarily crazy, but you also have to be asking yourself the question of whether that 4.5 defender is someone that you really want to be playing consistently. And if you can find someone, then go for it. I was never confirmed on Son captaincy, Amir. Challenge team. We could look at FPL Challenge a little bit later, but I'd like to answer some questions in chat. I don't think Lewis starts, by the way, for a lot of people asking. People saying that they got Dalot and Bruno in. I think that makes sense. People done -4s out of Holland as well. I think that's fine. Bench Vandenberg or Robinson. I'd probably bench Robinson just about. Let's captain Solanke. I'm considering it, to be honest. I am generally considering Solanke captain. That's the reason why I've probably not thought about Son captaincy too much is I just think that Ange's comments basically conflate with the idea that Son's going to play, you know, a good 90 minutes versus Ipswich at home. So probably Dom's my vice captain now, and we can change it and maybe fat finger a captaincy. I did go DCL to Wood, that's correct. Your season is over. You lost the will to continue playing. Been very unlucky. And I think the Twitter bubble, I think being on Twitter isn't ideal, right? Because a lot of people like to applaud good game weeks. When you have a bad game week, some people also like asking about why you made certain decisions as well, which I don't really love, if I'm being honest. The whole sort of questioning of whether people have made good decisions, that sort of thing. What I will say, though, is ultimately FPL's a game where you have to sort of decide what gives you enjoyment yourself. And you need to also have the ultimate faith, I think, in your decision-making process. So I might feel bad, for example, when I get YouTube comments. I might feel bad when I get Twitter comments as well when I'm doing poorly, but I still like playing this game for the game that it is. And I suppose the way I think about it is that a lot of people sending... I mean, I think about this game too much to even consider some of the comments that I think are just trolling. And I'm pretty comfortable in my decision-making process. But I think unless you're sort of there as well and you're comfortable maybe dealing with that sort of social element of the game, then, you know, it might be the case that you want to quit, and that's totally fine as well. So it comes down to what you want. On Sunday, after I asked you about Holland McNeil out for Salah and Isak, you did that move immediately since you had no desire. That's fair enough. And that probably is an indication that you're not enjoying FPL, which I think is unfortunate. I'm from Hong Kong originally, but I'm living in London. Start Lewis or Gabriel? I'd start Gabriel. Who's the best 3 strikers under 6.5 million? Good question. I mean, I'd still probably say for this run ahead, Cunha, one of the Brighton strikers. It's tough, right? If I answer you Welbeck now, the question is going to be, does Welbeck have perfect minutes in the future? And I actually think Welbeck does, to be quite honest. So I would say Welbeck's one of them. I'd probably put... Then I'd have to sort of pick between Strand Larsen and João Pedro. Because I'm still unsure about when João Pedro's going to come back, I'll probably say Strand Larsen. But actually, you might think that Raul is better. My concern with Raul is, does he play 74 minutes every single game week for the future? And I'm not super sure about that. So that's why I've selected Strand Larsen, because I do think his minutes are actually very strong. So those are my 3, but, you know, there's other people's in that sort of territory. DCL to Larsen, I think, is a strong and safe move, particularly if it gives you money to do other moves. Worth risking captaincy or play it safe? Yeah, I think this is a week where we can consider it. Ziad says, why Wood, where's Welbeck? I ultimately thought that with Welbeck, I'd be owning someone who probably doesn't take penalties after game week 13. So I kind of decided to change my mind basically, and go into Wood is how I decided to get there. You have a really funny way of saying McNeil. Am I saying it wrong? Start 1. Lewis versus Dibbling versus Rogers. I'd probably start Rogers, to be honest. I love my hair, Nuz says. Shall I captain Bruno today? I think Bruno is a considerable option, particularly since your next best option is Haaland, right? When I look at it like that. So yeah, I think Bruno captain is totally fine. Phil with an F, thank you so much for the super chat. What's up, Fran? Rico to Dallo, or Aitnuri, or roll and start Robinson. I'm also locked on going Smith Rowe to Bruno. Yeah, I mean, that would have been ideal, wouldn't it? If you're planning to start Rico, but you can actually roll and start Robinson, I'd probably actually roll and start Robinson. I don't really think that Aitnuri is... Like, Aitnuri is an amazing transfer for this game week, but it kind of feels like a bit of a dead-end move as well. Because, as I said, I do think that Aitnuri is sort of in that camp of players who, like Leif Davis, are very good attackers, but still don't have too much value multiple game weeks going ahead. And unless you have, you know, a supreme fixture like Ipswich at home, which, to be fair, Wolves do, you know, that's the sort of rotation you would be considering, and maybe it isn't worth the transfer from that perspective. Dallo is nice if you can guarantee his minutes in the next 3, for sure. I am a little bit unsure that I can do that as someone who has been considering Dallo all week, but ultimately couldn't really get there from a decision-making point of view. So I'm a little bit colder on Dallo now, because I just think that it is very likely that Amorim will come in and probably decide to make a couple changes. And in my opinion, just sort of looking at Sporting and what he's done there, I think there's enough forward players like someone like Garnacho to play left wing back. I think that's plausible, to be honest. And I think I find it harder to believe that, let's say, Dallo and Mazraoui can both play wing back positions at the same time. And we know a couple left wing backs are coming back, or left backs at least for United. So that's why I'm a little bit colder on Dallo. But if you really feel like he's going to serve you well, you have maybe a bit more confidence in his minutes over the next 3, that's fine. I would probably go Dallo in that case. But yeah, I'd probably actually roll and start Robinson, especially since you're blocked from sort of even more higher ceiling moves this week anyways. Waddle D, thanks for the super chat. Saved McNeil to Palmer, Son / Bruno for a 1 week punt. I'd probably go Bruno, to be honest. I think if the minutes are better for... Trying to think about it. So the ownership is both extremely low. I think Bruno's ownership must be like below 5%. Son's ownership is just below 10, I'd imagine. Son's minutes do feel capped, though. That's sort of my concern with Son. Maybe he can get the job done quickly, but you always have that guarantee with Bruno on any game week that he'll probably play close to 90. So I'd probably say Bruno, to be honest. It feels like it's a similar type of risk decision, but if you want to go for Son purely because the fixture is a little bit better, then of course go for Son. But as I said, I can't guarantee Son's minutes this week. It's nice that Werner's out. It's nice that Mikey Moore is out, but I can't say his minutes will be great because of what we've seen already. Golden sent us over. Is that Golden Goal? Congratulations to him on 10K, by the way. So that was awesome. Captain Solanke, that's something I'm considering, yeah. Anish says, would you go Bruno over Garnacho? 100% I would, because I don't even think Garnacho is 100% guaranteed to start, particularly with the Amad Diallo performance in the midweek. He could start, right? And then the question is whether Rashford or Garnacho starts. Hi, Fran. Do you value rolling this week and playing Mikolenko or chase upside by transferring? If Hall was one of your considerations, I'd definitely roll. If it's Diallo and you have more confidence over Diallo than that, why Solanke over Son? Yeah, X minutes. Pretty much an X-Mets decision. That is correct. That's 6.1 million or less forward. I right now, if you really need someone who starts playing from now, I'd probably still say Welbeck. But I think Strand Larsen's actually pretty close. Danish says, please advise Rodgers or Welbeck. One is Man City, one out of Liverpool. I'd play Welbeck. I mean, Welbeck's at home, which I think is huge. Man City defense is probably worse than Liverpool defense. So I would just go Welbeck. And he's on pens. Right. Why would you play Lewis if he gets 4 minutes? Because playing Leif Davis with good minutes doesn't seem like it's any better, in my estimation. Spurs have a lot of routes to goals. Solanke going into deep roles. I mean, I'm not even sure what that means, though. So is the idea here that they play a center forward so that he can play deep? I don't think that's necessarily true. Solanke has perfectly fine XG himself. And it's not like, for example, it's not like Brennan Johnson and Son, for example, are taking all the XG in the team. Solanke still has XG. And we can see, as I said in my video sort of recapping Solanke's haul last week, things are so different in football. So it's like it comes down to whether when he makes, let's say, a great pass in terms of holds the ball up in the middle of the field, then sprays it to someone else. And then the question is, does he get onto the end of a late ball anyways through a play? We can see that clearly can still happen. So it's not like they're intentionally playing Solanke as if he's a DM. There's just going to be some matches where maybe he doesn't get chances, and that just happens to everyone. So I still think Solanke is perfectly fine. I don't think Spurs are some sort of completely different team where a center forward is uninvolved. I do think Ahmad could start, to be honest. Hi, Fran. Should I play Rodgers against Liverpool or Dibbling against one of the worst defenses in the league? I don't know if Dibbling's going to start, right? That's sort of my concern in that situation. I would probably say I'd pass. Solanke isn't the talisman. How is Madison the talisman when he doesn't even play half the minutes of football? Madison is the furthest thing from a talisman for Spurs right now, in my opinion. I also don't think you necessarily need to be the talisman. Like some people would probably argue that Haaland isn't necessarily the talisman. If you want to say it like that, like Haaland, I guess, isn't the talisman. Is it KDB when KDB plays? But it's not necessarily the case that you choose KDB over Haaland outright, if that makes sense. So I guess like talisman for FPL or talisman for football in games. Solanke has plenty of XGI going himself. So clearly a lot of chances still fall to him. If I didn't have Haaland or Son, would you captain Salah Solanke? I'd probably captain Salah still right now. I think Salah and Solanke is pretty close, but I do think that There's a case/myth that Solanke only scores against good oppositions, never against poor teams who just camp and sit back. Just check who he scores his goals against and when he blanks. Yeah, but the thing is, how have you come to that conclusion from Solanke playing 8 games of football? And I believe he scored versus United as well, right? You're safer with any main man at any club. I mean, you don't have to own Solanke if you don't want to own Solanke, but I wouldn't call Maddison a talisman right now. Best Lewis replacement. Probably still, at the end of the day, someone like Dalot is fine. Ait-Nouri is fine. Lewis Hall, if you want to future plan a little bit, is fine as well. Should I get Son in for McNeil? I think that's a solid transfer. Hey, Fran, hope you're well. Should I start Watkins or NDIA? I'd probably start Watkins still. Will Lewis start? I don't think so. Do you know how to buy Saka and Son's place in the next game week for the money? Yeah, of course. I've got... I can show you my team. So next week, right, I've got 0.4 in the bank. It only takes 0.3 to get towards Saka. So I can still, you know, deal with a price drop, but Saka will come in for me next week just like this. Start Gabriel or Lewis? I'd probably start Gabriel, to be honest. Do you like Mavididi out? I don't really like Garnacho in because I can't confirm that Garnacho's minutes going to be perfect. Monk says, hey, Fran, Lewis to Nuri or Dalot? I'd probably feel comfortable going Nuri. Because I, as I said, I can't 100% guarantee Dalot's minutes, and maybe stretching that additional money in the bank isn't exactly great. My point is, he plays his best when he makes run in behind. I agree with that. But I mean, Aston Villa were pretty much defending when he was making runs in behind. Yeah, as I said, I do think it is a myth personally, because the way football games work is people will always say that a center forward will struggle versus a deep block or a back five, right? Because you kind of have to play like a decoy role. You have to play. You don't get many chances, right? But the reality still too is those defenses are often very bad defenses. So as long as you're a striker, like you're still gonna deal with chances where, who knows, there's a rebound and you get an opportunity with a tap in. You get opportunities where you can still strike with one touch because of the class that you have as a striker. Things like that. So the way I see it, tactically, yeah, sure, fine. A striker will always, in theory, deal worse with a game like that, but it doesn't. Why am I starting Lewis over Rodgers? Because you have to play 3 defenders in FPL. Unfortunately, Robinson always gets returns when you suggest to bench him. I mean, he got 5 points, right, last week. And who was he benched for? I think I told some people to play Robinson last week. But I wonder who I told you to bench Robinson for. Don't know if I should keep Trent Alexander-Arnold or transfer. I would keep Trent easily over Guardiola this week. I mean, to me, it's crazy that Trent is on 1 assist. And it's not the case that I think Trent has substantially changed his playstyle, where I'm expecting Trent to get 2 assists in over 20 game weeks, right? So if you ask me to bet again over the next 10, would I think that Trent has more than 1 assist? Absolutely, even if the fixtures are worse. Would Maddison start or should I get Bruno? I can't confirm if Maddison starts, to be honest. So, yeah, my answer would probably be I'd go Bruno still. Play DCL or Rodgers. I'd probably play DCL just about. I mean, I was going to play DCL before I made the move. Sell Wood for Cunha. I think that makes no sense. Rico, Lewis, or Gabriel. Who would you start? I would start Gabriel easily. Thoughts on Foden and Calvert-Lewin for Son and Wood. The thing about Son is that Son and Wood both have 2 poor fixtures next. Clearly, so does Foden technically, but Calvert-Lewin has a better fixture coming up. Brentford at home. Wood or Cunha? I'd probably actually go Cunha if I had to make that decision. But I mean, ultimately, I've got Wood and Cunha. Is Haaland better captain than Son or Solanke? I'd probably say Haaland's a better captain than Son, just about. But it's close. I think I'm still going to captain Solanke at the end of the day. I mean, sorry, Salah at the end of the day. Thoughts on Solanke captain? I think Solanke captain is justifiable, especially if you're looking for a lot of upside and a lot of risk, because this is a great fixture. The thing about Ipswich as well, you know, they aren't like your classic park the bus type of team either. Like there's a lot of transition threat in the game, so I don't see them as like a sitting back sort of team. And I don't know, if they've been sitting back, they've probably approached sitting back in the worst way possible in footballing history, because they're one of the worst defenses I've seen. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Ipswich. Will you get Porro? And that's not even to discredit Ipswich. I think they're actually playing in a way where they're almost trying to min-max results. Like they already have 5 draws on the table, which is actually really good, right? That's already better than Southampton and Wolves, I guess, who've tried different approaches. Wolves clearly have a good fixture run, so that's nice. And Ipswich had the end of their good fixture run, but a lot of people have been saying that Ipswich probably have the worst squad quality possible. So, I mean, the results so far have been pretty good for what we expect. What to do with DCL? I think you can hold this week because it seems like he can still start, or you can sell him. I've chosen to sell him, but it's a question of when you sometimes save a free transfer and you roll, do you have better moves to make when you've got 2 free transfers? And I still feel like, yes, I wanted to go to the international break with 2 free transfers. That's always advisable. But at the end of the day, I just thought, okay, I'm actually fine going with the team with 1 free transfer. Spurs defensive tactic is attack more. I think that's right, Andy. You know, in a way. Spurs' defense have actually been probably a bit better than people expect this season, I would say, in terms of like chances conceded, all that kind of stuff. They've also only conceded 11 goals. Like that puts them as I think 4th in terms of like most goals conceded. So I think the idea that they're a really poor defense is poor, but of course they have Davies playing, they have other people. I mean, who else is playing? Dragusin, right? So Davies Dragusin is not ideal if you're going to tell me that that's going to be the lineup for the next few days. But Romero could still play, apparently. So why are most people benching Lewis? Because it seems, I think everyone's predicting that Rico Lewis is going to be benched. So yeah, I just don't have enough confirmation bias to probably make a move on that. So yeah. 1 second, sorry. I just have to. I'm going to quickly check on potential lineup news, all that kind of stuff. Doesn't really seem like we've got any leak type of news today, so it's a bit unfortunate. But yeah. Is it worth burning a free transfer to take Foden out for Son or Bruno? I would probably go Bruno personally, because the Bruno next 3 fixtures are really good. And the way I see it, like if you go for Son, you're going for 1 really good game, then 1 really mid game, and then who knows. So I would rather just go for Bruno, have 3 good game weeks in a row, and then you can ship Bruno out on game week 14. So that's really what I would plan to do with Bruno. Who will I replace Lewis with? I don't think I'll be replacing Lewis, to be honest. I'll just stomach the bad game week and have a poor team on paper. Rodgers or Lewis? I'd play Rodgers if you had the chance to play Rodgers over Lewis. Why Wood over Larson? I mean, ultimately, I've got. I actually think that Wood still has more staying power than Larson, right? So I like the idea that owning a penalty taker plus all the other intangibles is nice, basically from like game week 16 onwards, and then between let's say 11 and 15, I'm going to be rotating Rodgers in a lot. So this week, for example, is a Wood week. Next week is a Rodgers week. Game week 13 is a Wood week. Ipswich at home, and then after that, it's going to be back to Rodgers, Brentford at home, Southampton at home, and then after that, I can start playing Wood quite comfortably. I would say 16 plus. Like I think the only tough game here is Liverpool, right? In 21. All of these games, 16, 17, 18, 19, even 20, I think I can quite comfortably play Wood. Is it insane to I do think it's insane to captain Cunha over Salah. Who is a good option to replace DCL as Wood is out of budget? I think Strand Larsen is the one. If you have Evan Nilsson is also a good pick as well, to be fair. One of the concerns I have with Evan Nilsson is that Justin Kluivert is getting some more minutes because of the injuries, right? So that just means if he's the penalty taker, that's less chances for Evan Nilsson to take penalties over 90 minutes. So that's something I thought about when I was thinking about Evan Nilsson. Welbeck for NDI now or Wade? I think you could, if you really want to go Welbeck, I think this is the time to go for him. You don't have enough money to do Son to Saka next week, so who should I do instead? You don't really need to make Son to Saka as a move. I think holding Son over the December period is actually very, very sensible. You know, you can definitely go for it. Hi, Fran. Who should I transfer out for DCL and Madueke? Madueke, I think, is an easy transfer to Semenyo, right? If you're just gonna save a little bit of money there, I think you could just do that. I wonder also if you do that, if you go Madueke plus money in the bank, and do you have access to Solanke potentially? Haaland or Salah captain? I'd probably go Salah captain. Captain Solanke or Salah? I'd probably go Salah still. I'm going for Salah captaincy for now. But I'd rather actually. I mean, I basically am just telling you that I don't have big enough whatever's down under to go Solanke this game week, and I think I feel comfortable going with Salah. But do I think Solanke is a very justifiable captain? Absolutely, I do. I think he's a very good captain pick. But yeah, I don't think I'm gonna take the risk this week. Basically. Havertz. Havertz to me is more of a transfer for next week, right? But I've seen some people selling Havertz. Ultimately, if you are going to go for Solanke from Havertz, I think that could make sense maybe. But you're still trading up one good fixture versus one bad. I don't really mind Havertz as a bit of a hold because I think his minutes are going to be perfect over this period anyways. So there shouldn't really be too much, I guess, driving the decision. The decision. If we can put it like that. Excuse me. Who do you think Lewis will start? I don't think he'll start. Let's do a poll actually on captaincy because I actually think it's quite interesting. I'm going to double up Solanke and Son because I have to imagine someone is just going to be making a decision between one of the players who plays versus Ipswich, right? Why do I have Lewis? Because I just don't want to play Leif Davis versus Spurs because I actually think that's like roughly around the same value that I'd expect from Lewis if Lewis came off the bench. Thoughts on Lewis out for Mazraoui? I think Mazraoui is fine, but please don't spam the chat. I have to put you in timeout. I think Mazraoui is fine as a transfer, but you need to also know that there's risk going into Mazraoui with his minutes under a new manager, all that sort of thing. Do you think DCL plays? I do think DCL plays. Why am I not considering a defender transfer? I just think that defender transfers are a tough one because I still think that Guardiola Gabriel Dunk is a really good defense going forward. So if I'm going for a defender transfer this week, I'm asking myself the question of, do I think there's a defender who can outscore Lewis by 4 points, right? Because I've already made a Wood transfer. And most often than not, the reality is no. There's no general expectation for any single game week where a defender outscores Lewis by 4 points. Porro might do that, right? But I can't go to Porro. And Trent could arguably do that as well, but can't go there as well. So between options like Ryan Nuri, who have a really good game week, Dalot, Mazraoui, I still don't have that sort of level of comfort to go into those picks right now, and I don't really care, frankly. Why do I have Palmer playing if I've got Gabriel? I mean, have you ever, do you play FPL every single game week to make sure that your defender doesn't play against your attacker, because it's basically impossible to avoid doing that. The reality is defenders can also do something as well. Like I didn't own Palmer because I didn't eventually think that I would play him versus Gabriel. But mirror matchups happen, so of course I'd rather just play Gabriel. Hey Fran, have the money in the bank to go. Hey Righty, hope you're doing well. You've got the money in the bank to go Roger / Semenyo to Bruno, or just hold and play these. I would just go Bruno, mate. That feels like quite an easy move. You don't like the idea of benching DCL though. Son to Palmer next game week. I mean, I guess so. If you go Bruno, are you just completely closing yourself off from Palmer in the future, or does that mean you need to take a hit to go to Palmer? Is that the point? I guess you could just roll in if you want. Any news of Palmer trained today? It seems like he trained yesterday. I mean, what he put on was some sort of recovery kind of ankle, or like not even. It's almost like a cushion between his, I think, his knee and his ankle, right? So that's almost like a recovery machine, I feel like, which probably indicates that he probably trained yesterday. I can't be sure on Palmer though. Obviously, I don't have inside information on Chelsea. Salah seems like the dominant captaincy choice. Lots of people considering Solanke and Son though, so that could be pretty fun. Cold therapy, yeah. Cunha, Isak. I think, yeah, people actually Googled the machine, and it is sort of a cold therapy machine. Really would like 2 free transfers going to the international, but Lewis is bye-bye. Yeah, I think that's fine. Because I own Duncan Gabriel, I just don't really think I need to force a Lewis transfer, to be honest. And I really liked the idea of just owning Wood and Rogers rotation, so I'm where I am. Dan Watson, thank you for the super chat. Was thinking selling Haaland down to Isak and upgrading Rogers for Salah for a -4. You've got Rogers, Saka, Garnacho. The only thing I'd say, Dan, is I'm generally a little bit unsure if Garnacho plays. So I guess your auto sub in this situation is not great. It would be probably a defender. And because you're using a -4 in this situation, I don't think there's that much more upside. You do have a good team going next week forwards, right? Like I think Palmer, or rather, I think Haaland and Salah seem like a closer captaincy choice next game week. And you would have saved the -4, and you already have Palmer, who a lot of people are trying to stretch towards getting towards next week. So I understand the appeal of the move, but I still think you can ultimately stomach maybe just having Rodgers on the bench this or playing Rodgers this week, or maybe moving out of Rodgers as a way to skirt the need for a -4. But I do like Isak, to be fair. If you made that move next week with 2 free transfers, I think I'd actually like it a fair bit more if we had better information on Garnacho. So my point, I guess, is I don't really know what's Garnacho's minutes going to be like under Rude this week, and I think it feels risky given that you have Chouameni making that move. So I'm not sure if I like the -4. I don't know if you've thought about Garnacho as deeply as I have. Maybe I'm overthinking it, and a lot of people think Garnacho will start, but something to consider, I would say. Going for Bruno captaincy, I think Bruno is a good captaincy. Like if you're chasing a little bit of upside and you're willing to give away a bit of risk against the field, yeah, I think Bruno captaincy is like perfectly fine. Clearly, as I said, I do think Salah's a better cap option this game week. But yeah, I mean, Bruno, Solanke, Son, those types of players, even Haaland, of course, are very competitive options. Havertz out to who? I mean, there's plenty of options if you want to go Havertz out, including something as simple as Solanke in. On this game week, though, I'd probably consider just going for Cunha, right? Because he kind of feels like a downgrade in terms of price that could get you upgrades elsewhere that has really good minutes, I would say. So he's definitely an option I would consider. Haaland, Solanke, or Bruno captain? I'd probably go Solanke in that instance. I think if I didn't have Salah, I would be on Solanke cap. That's probably my decision on captaincy this week, actually. I'd probably go Salah cap if I was a Haaland owner. Did I do Wood transfer before the rise? Yes, that's correct. I did. Semenyo or Smith Rowe? I'd probably go Semenyo. It's, I think, a Fulham away fixture, right? So, yeah. Seems like a pretty easy decision. Wouldn't Hoyland be a great week? I mean, Hoyland on paper is a great pick, but I think a lot of people are looking at Gyökeres and literally thinking that somehow Amorim is going to pull Hoyland out of that. I don't think that that's too likely. He's not on penalties compared to some other centre forwards in the league. So yes, of course, Hoyland should be cooking on paper for the next 3 game weeks, but I still think he's actually at a little bit of a weird price point. Hoyland is. I don't think he's that good. This is clearly the fixture where you want to bring him in. If you want to consider Hoyland for 3 game weeks and you're happy moving him out in game week 14, I think that could work as well. Strand Larson or Raul, I'd probably actually go Strand Larson. Last week I would have said Raul because you're factoring that Brentford at home fixture, but now you're one good Raul fixture down the line. I still think Muniz could challenge for his minutes in December. So that's my thoughts. Dan Watson says, I could just upgrade Chiwome to someone like Evan Nilsson on a free and still have enough to do Isak and Salah in the... I think that's fair then, Dan, because I do generally like Isak starting from game week. I mean, even now, arguably, right? So, yeah, why not? Start to Trent, Gabriel, Aina. I'd probably do Trent and Aina, to be honest. Lots of start twos. Let's just go through them quickly. Dallo, Lewis, Gabriel. I'd probably go Dallo, Gabriel easily. Bench one of Lewis, Aina, Gabriel. I'd bench Lewis. Captain Son versus Holland. I'd probably do Son. Hello, Fran Janksta. Hey, haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well. Yogesh says, any -4 you're considering. Good luck. Rise has begun. Thank you so much, Yogesh. I would probably at best consider a defender transfer like maybe Dallo, but I don't think I'm going to do it. As I said. The reason why I don't like Lewis to Dallo once I've done this Wood move is, well, look, it's pretty obvious. I just can't go Saka next game week, right? So if I went for a -4, it would probably be a bad move and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone else, but it could be like, you know, something as simple as Ait-Nouri this game week. It could be something as simple as going Hall for the long term, because I do think when I look at someone like Hall, these fixtures are really, really good. I'll be able to get Leicester, Ipswich down the line, which is nice. And I still think that, of course, when I compare, let's say, Newcastle defense to Wolves defense, that ultimately it's a lot better, right? Whereas if I go with Ait-Nouri, for example, my only concern with him is, okay, this is an incredibly green run of games, but I'm only probably going to be playing him 11, 16, and 17. And I don't think I necessarily need to force this -4 because most of these game weeks anyways, I will be playing Gabriel, right? So you saw when Ryan Ait-Nouri had some green fixtures, I'll be playing Gabriel then. I'll still own Guardiola, and his fixtures are actually decent then too. It's only the Aston Villa game that's poor. As far as, let's say, Dunk, he's also got a decent amount of games there then too. So the case is either I don't value Dunk as a defender, and I would much rather have Ryan Ait-Nouri, or I'm actually okay with owning the 3 defenders that I have with Davis excluded, but Davis could actually play as well within certain game weeks. So that's sort of my thoughts as to why I don't really want to replace Rico. And I still think Rico is going to start in games in the season, right? Like if he can start versus Nottingham Forest at home, if he can start versus Crystal Palace, like those are games where I'd still play Lewis ultimately. Aaron, thank you so much for the super chat as well. Really appreciate it. Aaron Sweetman, that is. I don't know if you put a comment down, but I'll have a look and see if you've given a text, because I don't think there's any text associated to your super chat, so I will look out for that. FPL Uproar, thank you for your super chat. Cunha, Evan Nilsson, or Strand Larson, or keep Havertz. I need the funds for Johnson to Saka in 12, so would need to sell Havertz. Good luck this weekend. I think selling Havertz this week is fine, because ultimately, the way I see it, you're really just pivoting between one Arsenal attacker to another, and Havertz to Saka I do think is generally an upgrade. I would probably just go Strand Larson, right? Great immediate fixture. You probably save a little bit more money in the bank. Similar sort of expected value to Cunha, I would say. There's obviously a bit of a gap, but clearly there's a cost factored in there. So I would just go Strand Larson and hope that you don't get budget restricted at all. And I think that's actually a really nice move. A lot of people are moving to Strand Larson, I think, for a very good reason this week. Alfred, thank you for your super chat as well. Couldn't see a message associated to it, but I'll look out for it as well. Thank you so much. I think you're best waiting to see how Almiron lines up before bringing in a United defender. I agree with that completely, Ian, which is why I haven't brought in a United defender. And another thing too is if I let's say brought in a defender this week and I wasn't sure about their minutes for the next two, I'd be quite screwed, right? Whereas if I bring in someone like Wood, I think his minutes are probably guaranteed over the period, and you know he's just a good player generally speaking. Who would you start from Rodgers or Rutter this week? I would start Rutter. You're gonna need your boy Semenyo to snatch that Fleck in CS today. That's fine. I wasn't expecting a Fleck in CS anyways. So if your boy Semenyo can score, but then also, you know, give a couple shots on target for Flecken to save, like, you know, that would be good. Why bring in Wood over Brighton attackers? I can't guarantee the JP minutes. I think I can rotate Wood with Rodgers in the foreseeable, and I think Wood is still better long-term than Welbeck. Why do you think with all the projections that Salah will outpoint Son? What does that mean? Sorry. I think it comes down to minutes, right? Most people are expecting Son to play less minutes, which is the only reason why there's a gap between Son and Salah. Any perfect replacement for Rodgers this game week? Probably Semenyo, to be honest. Alfred said, missed writing, one free transfer. Drop ECL, that's DCL, right? To Solanke / Isak. I think Solanke and Isak are starting to come close as options. I'd probably just go Solanke for that juice, you know, that Ipswich at home. Start with a bang, make the free transfer, get a lot of upside, and you still say, like, the way I see it, right? I was definitely considering, how do I get from Solanke to Isak in the future? But is Solanke that far apart from Isak? Maybe not. So I feel like I'm living in a world where I'm going to own Solanke for the foreseeable. And that's sort of where I'm at. If you sort of disagree with that, and you don't really want to, let's say, own Solanke permanently after 11, then fine. That's going to change your decision. And Isak is just a far better long-term option. But I'm not necessarily settled in thinking that Isak is much better than Solanke long-term, which is why, as I said, I've cooled off on the idea that I need to go Isak. So yeah. Going for Bruno captaincy, good differential. I think that's fine, protagonist. As I said, I think that you are probably going to be aware of the fact that that's going to go against maybe the best option in your team potentially by a bit, but there's a lot of upside there if you can get it right from a risk perspective. Yala, I hope you're doing well. Hi, Fran. What do you think of Holland to Cunha, Wings to Salah? I think that's fine, man. That's a great move. It's basically the move that I went last week, right? Stop spamming. Yeah, sorry. I'm gonna have to mute Bohemian. Appreciate that. Cunha captain. I still think I'm not there. Cunha captaincy personally. Hi, Fran. Flecken or Fabianski. You're asking good questions here. I mean, Fabianski has that sort of Everton at home fixture, right? It's close. I'd probably go Fabianski, if I'm honest with you. The way I see it, that Brentford defense is awful, and Bournemouth seem to be quite a good team, so I would go Fabianski quite easily. As far as Fabianski versus Raya, I'd probably still go Fabianski as well. Maybe just bet against Arsenal defense. But if you have double Arsenal defense anyways, you could also justify it the other way. Like, you could just want to play both of them. I think I think Fabianski versus Raya is a lot closer. Would you bring in Wood for a third attacker spot this week? I mean, that's literally what I did. Hey, Fran, Semenyo or Garnacho? I'd go Semenyo. Captain Isak? I don't think this is a good fixture for Isak captaincy personally. Play McNeil or Watkins? I would definitely just play... I'd play Watkins still. Lewis to Aitnuri, Ndiaye to Welbeck, Gabriel / Guardiola to Dallo, and Ndiaye to Wood. I would probably... That is a mouthful, I have to say. Are you using 3 free transfers here, or am I misreading this? No, I don't think it's worth it. Does Palmer start? I think he should. Jackson to Solanke. I mean, Jackson's about to enter his run of good games, and this is obviously a great Solanke game, but if you can probably hold if you can probably hold Jackson this game week, it really depends. Do you think Jackson is a much better player than Solanke? If you don't think so, then just go Solanke, because you're going to get better fixtures over the horizon, I would say. And better minutes from Solanke, probably. My only issue with Jackson is those substitutions still happen. That takes away a little bit of that topper of the ceiling argument. And yeah, I think there's like the Spurs run, honestly, after Man City is not bad. Like it's Fulham at home, Bournemouth away, Chelsea at home, Southampton away. Like those aren't bad games. So maybe just go Jackson and Solanke. Yeah. Would you consider Rodgers the Semenyo for a hit if Rodgers was starting for you? No, I wouldn't consider it for a hit at all. Smith Rowe Semenyo, I'd play Semenyo quite easily. Lewis to Dallo or DCL to Solanke for a hit. I'd probably do the DCL move for a hit. I think that actually feels like a move that I would be comfortable with doing. Wisa has the same problem as Jackson for minutes. He does, but Wisa is also a lot cheaper, I guess. So maybe there's some justification there. One of the things that Wisa also struggles with is that his fixture run is just generally much worse, right? So Wisa, I think, actually has really good minutes, and I think he's actually a really good pick. So I don't really have any complaints against people going for Wisa. But yeah, next three are really good for Brentford. After that, though, it's I guess a bit of a mediocre run of games. Like it's Aston Villa away, Newcastle at home, Chelsea away, Nottingham Forest at home, Brighton away, Arsenal home. So it's actually a pretty long, extended, bad run of games for Brentford. But is Wisa still a good option where over the next few game weeks, like, do I have comfort in him as a pick and him starting? Yes. But I also heard the news that Igor Thiago's close to coming back. So you also have to think about over the run here, does Wisa actually lose more minutes? Because sure, maybe he's an 80-minute player right now, but I don't know if he's guaranteed to be an 80-minute player when Igor Thiago's back, for example. Wisa seems to score more against, but that could be right. I've seen Wisa score versus Man City, although hard to say whether Man City is a good defense nowadays. Palmer to Bruno, then Foden to Palmer next game week. I think that's sort of trolling personally. I would rather go Foden to Bruno, surely, just this game week instead. Lewis or Gabriel, I'd play Gabriel. Who to bench out of Mikolenko, Lewis, Gabriel, Trent, I'd bench Lewis. And yeah, to Welbeck, yeah, you can go for that move. Isak or Cunha for Havertz, I would definitely just go Isak personally. Because it feels like you're not like, okay, fine, Cunha's got a much better game week this week. And I think that's undeniable basically at this point. But is there some value still to just simply going for an Isak for the long-term option? I think there is, right? So Isak to me is playable almost every single game week, except for, I don't know. Actually, I mean, he's just playable every single game week. So when you go for someone like maybe Cunha, the issue is you're going to also ask yourself, do I have enough rotation to deal with owning Cunha? Which, look, to be honest, the only game that I would consider benching Cunha myself is probably game week 19 or 12. So yeah, like, maybe the nice thing about Cunha is that he actually just has such good run for a 6.x player that you don't need to rotate him. Fine, I can go Cunha. But the question is always just going to be, if I go Isak, do I stop myself from another really good midfield move? Because that's around 1.7 million in terms of difference. So yeah, I guess this 1.7 million make a huge leap for your defense, for your midfield. Otherwise, I would just go Isak. Start Lewis, Rodgers, or Semenyo. I'd probably go Rodgers. I'd go Semenyo easily. Cunha or Strand Larson. I would probably actually go Strand Larson if I had to make the decision this game week, because I kind of like how much money you save from that. At the same time, this is knowing that Cunha's 6.7 and Strand Larson's 5.6. 2 weeks ago, I think it was just a 1 million difference. So it wasn't actually so much of a decision, I think. And that kind of changes the scale too. I also have a lot more confidence in Strand Larson's minute now, and on Wolves being an attack that's actually going to comfortably perform well within the future games. Start Flecken or Fabianski. I'd go Fabianski if I had Fabianski. I would play Fabianski over Flecken quite easily this game week, 100%. So hopefully that answers that sort of question. Pinnock or Lewis, I'd play Pinnock still. Start DCL or Semenyo, I'd easily start Semenyo. DCL for Solanke or safe transfer to get Welbeck. I would just go Solanke personally. I don't think Welbeck is that essential of a move. Who knows? In 2 weeks' time, you might actually want João Pedro over Welbeck, right? Updates on McNeil, I don't have any. It seems like the last rumored updates yesterday was that he was a bit doubtful, so I really don't have any update on that. If you were selling Lewis and didn't have Dunk, would you bring in Ryan Nuri or Brighton defender? I would probably wait for... Honestly, I would actually try gamble Kadioglu, personally. In 2 game weeks' time, if I didn't have Dunk, I think I would actually be in the Kadioglu business. I know it sounds excessive, but he's interesting to me, for sure. I mean, like, the sort of positions that he's in, the expectations that his minutes could be a lot better because he's clearly adapting very well to the Premier League. Yeah, I mean, like, 30 is interesting for me, for sure. So that would be Mr. F. Dot. Yeah, if you told me that Kadioglu was going to be permanently starting, then, you know, he's the one, really, I would say. But I can see a lot of people saying, okay, there's Jack Hinchelwood at the club. He plays so many positions. He can fill in fullback minutes. There's going to be some matches where maybe Kadioglu doesn't make sense from a defensive point of view, and probably Hinchelwood gives you a bit more, I guess, coverage in other positions. We've seen Estupinian substitutions as well between him and Kadioglu, so there's probably, look, a good counter argument against that. Ryan Arturi does feel safe from the perspective that you know his minutes are guaranteed. So I can give you that easily. Like, I think that's one huge pro of Arturi for sure. That his minutes are absolutely safe. What transfers? Punt on Gakpo for next 2. I mean, I guess you're also betting that Darwin's not going to play too much, right? Is that sort of what you're sort of asking me here? What is my lineup? Oh, right. Sorry. I'm showing my transfers. That's my lineup here. Raya out for Cells now. I don't think that's worth it at all. You're basically jumping onto a pretty poor run of games from Cells' perspective, from a defensive point of view. So, and you're moving out of Raya before he has a really good run of games. Henry says he's still got Kwanzaa. Anyone at 4 million that can replace him? I don't really think so, unfortunately. Oh, sorry about missing the super chat stream, brother. I've just been reading questions, but your super chat was starting Palmer and Jackson, start Saliba / Rico. I mean, starting Palmer and Jackson is fine. Is your question whether you should transfer Jackson? Because I do think Jackson can be a transfer. Obviously, Chelsea are about to embark on a great run, but starting Palmer and Jackson is totally fine. I just don't know who you're benching. Or is the question between one of the two? If it's one of the two, I would still go Palmer. Start Saliba, Rico. I would definitely go Saliba once again. I don't think Rico is necessarily going to start. I think it's probably less than 50% that he starts. I only own Lewis because, as I said, I don't really want to use a transfer in a defender that I have an uncertainty about what their minutes going forwards. Like, Colwell is interesting, but he has a bad fixture this game week. Hall, same sort of issue there. But then the sort of United defenders, I don't have the comfort on those sorts of players. So that's why I don't have a United defender on my team this game week. And I've decided to make a forward move also to sort of price protect my team as well. But yeah, easily for me, it's a start for Saliba. As far as Salih's question for his super chat as well, thank you so much, by the way, both of you. Game week 11, Sells, Trent, Alexander-Arnold, Colwell, Aina, Johnson, and Mbumo, Salah vice captain. Okay, that's a Haaland captain. Interesting. Rutter, Evan Nilsson. So one thing I'd probably ask is, why the Salah vice captain? I do think it's still a better Salah captain personally, but I can understand maybe the appeal for you is you know everyone owns, I guess, Salah and Haaland in theory. And I guess you want to get a little bit of the upside. I am a little bit colder on doing that. I probably would go for a Salah captaincy anyways. He's going to be the, like, I don't love it in a situation where I think Salah anyways is probably a better captain outright. And second of all, I'm going to own someone who's going to be above 100% in ownership, and he's going to actually hurt my value. Whereas a lot of people are actually selling Haaland, right? So you're probably still going to get some value from both of them if you do the captain and vice captain swapped. Otherwise, I think playing Sells over Flecken, totally good. I would personally play Gabriel over Colwell. That's up to you, though. If you think that you have more confidence within a Chelsea result, that's fine. Yeah. But as you said, you're going to start Colwell over Gabriel. I think that's fine. Lewis to Ait-Nouri or NDI to Welbeck or just roll. I mean, both moves are strong, including the roll. So you're just gonna have to make a decision yourself. As you can see with my own team, right? I was considering Lewis out moves, Leif Davis out moves, and forward moves as well. So I think NDI is going to play probably. I can't see his minutes being too hurt unless they suddenly play a 5-3-2 and he's not a part of it, which could be possible. But that seems unlikely. I would probably just go the Lewis out move if you are planning on, like, for example, I own Dunk, right? You might not own Dunk. If you own and want to go for Ait-Nouri, I'd probably go for Ait-Nouri. Those Twins says, hi, Fran. Lots of problems to help with. VDV, Lewis, and McNeil. I'd probably go McNeil to Bruno. Yeah, I think that's a strong move, honestly. Like, because there's just not that much of a leap that you can make with the defender upgrade compared to something like McNeil to Bruno is such a good single game week transfer. I would just do that. Start Welbeck or Semenyo. I would start Semenyo personally, and then Welbeck. Fran, Jackson over Isak for long term. I would go Isak over Jackson for the long term. Hello, Fran. You're in a dilemma because you have to start 5 defenders. Guardiola, Saliba, Vandenberg, Aina, Mazraoui. Is it somehow worth it because I'm benching Rodgers and DCL? I would probably... No, your defense is actually very strong. I don't mind playing those 5 defenders personally. But I would consider... If you think DCL starts, I would consider dropping Vandenberg into the bench or playing Rodgers over him if you don't think DCL starts. Other than that, I think you can play a back 5 or back 4. Are Spurs players essential? I don't think they're essential at all. I'm planning to ship out a Spurs player within my own team next week. Solanke captain, Fran, your asks, I think that's fine. As I said, if I owned Haaland, I would go Solanke captain. If I owned Salah, I probably would stick to the Salah captaincy. And that's sort of my decision making right now. I think both of them are going to play really good minutes. By the way, I want to share this with you guys right now, right? So one of the best in the business, or in my opinion, the best in the business for Man City, Luke, he's come back with a banger, and this is what he's predicting. He's predicting a Lewis start. This is not going to be guaranteed, right? Look, Luke is one of the best in the business. He doesn't know what the injury situation is with Ake. Remember that there was talks about how Ake was sort of struggling with the load. We know Akanji has struggled with a couple issues. So his point is that he's assuming due to sort of injury management that Lewis will start. It doesn't mean that he's guaranteeing a Lewis start. This is not a Lewis start leak, but this is good information for anyone who owns Lewis as well. Potentially, you could still get a start from Lewis. But a lot of people have been asking me the question of, do I play Gabriel over Lewis? Absolutely. Play anyone who's 100% going to play this game week over Lewis, as long as they actually have a decent fixture. And even if they don't have a decent fixture, you also have to realize that Man City versus Brighton away is a really bad fixture. So it doesn't mean that Lewis is a god. Lewis to Ryan Ait-Nouri is an amazing transfer. Lewis to Dalot is an amazing transfer, right? But Lewis being benched over Gabriel, regardless of what you know about the Man City lineup, I would still do that. I would still play Gabriel over Lewis, because you never know what's exactly going to happen. Like, it could even be the case that Lewis could get subbed off at 45 minutes once again. So that's why I think this is good information, 100%. And it gives me confirmation bias because I'm a Lewis owner. But don't suddenly bench all your players for Lewis, and don't suddenly stop the Lewis out plans if you think that, once again, Lewis, the point here is with the injury situation, that's why Lewis is playing. If a lot of players were back in the team, which could happen after the international break anyways, Lewis's minutes are still very much fractured up until maybe game week 14 where he could get a start conceivably. So have a look at that, have a think about this yourself. And if you plan on moving Lewis out, you know, here's some additional sort of information at the final hour from one of the best in the business. But yeah, back to my team. Alrighty, so Lewis over DCL and Rodgers. I would not play Lewis over DCL and Rodgers, and that's exactly what I was talking about. So, you know, Lewis versus like Brighton away is quite frankly a bad fixture. I just don't have too many alternative options to move into, that makes me want to go, oh, I want to go out of Lewis, and you know, I have a defender in the future that's going to work out really, really well for me. So hopefully that makes sense. DCL or Rogers. Once again, I'd probably play DCL, but if you don't have confidence that DCL starts, then just play Rogers. You've made your team, Mohammed says. I don't think that's crazy, but I really want to know who else you're playing with that team. Smith Rowe or Semenyo over McNeil? I'd go Semenyo easily, personally. No spamming in chat, Daniel. You're just not going to get your question answered. Son captain thoughts. I think it's a very strong captaincy, but my concern with Son's minutes is his concern with his minutes. So yeah. Why don't people jump on United Defense? I mean, the issue with United Defense, as I said, is you have no guarantee on who's going to play under Amorim, right? Mazraoui and Dalot could both play right wing back, yes. But are you saying that he's going to guarantee left wing back? No, I don't think so. I think an attacker can play left wing back. I'm not even joking. And I think Anthony is closer to playing left wing back than maybe Dalot is. And maybe I'm trolling. But yeah, I can still move from Son to Saka. That's absolutely correct. Yeah, I can do that. Is McNeil starting? We don't have information on that, so I can't guarantee anything on that. It seems like McNeil is unlikely to play, but we don't have any news on that because last week we felt the same thing and McNeil ended up playing. Am I crazy for wanting Højlund? I don't think so. But I have to say, Højlund isn't actually that amazing of a pick, right? At the end of the day, he's still someone who doesn't take penalties, whereas a lot of the other center forwards in the leagues do take penalties and potentially even have better minutes. Clearly, Amorim can maybe upgrade the offense, but I'm not saying that. I just cannot see Højlund being Gyökeres, basically, so just don't make that leap of faith. Is Lewis starting for sure? I literally said he wasn't, so I don't know. Try listening. You know I love a differential, hence Haaland captain. I think that's fine, Sela. That's fine. I think Vardy will bag a hat-trick against Man Useless. I don't think that's remotely going to happen, but fair enough. Lewis or Harwood Bellis, I'd play Lewis. Dr. Yazan, hope you're doing well. Hey, Fran, hope you're doing well. Can you please check Discord? Absolutely, I can check Discord. And I'll have a look at Discord now. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. This week is driving you crazy. Given the press conference updates, do you think you should roll or you should go for Trent / Gabriel, maybe with a hit? I don't think this is a good game week to go for Gabriel, so definitely maybe if you want to go for Gabriel, save that transfer for next game week. Start Kelleher or Fabianski. I would start Kelleher personally. Should I change one of my attackers to Wood? I don't think that that's necessary. In fact, your attackers are fine, you know. Be comfortable with them. If you think I should keep Raul, how crazy is that? No, do not captain Raul. Do not captain Raul, please. Please do not captain Raul. Captain Salah, vice captain Son. Your team is good. You should be rolling because you have Anderson as good defensive cover. Make a decision on Lewis versus Anderson, and that's the only thing I think your team needs to do. I think your team's lovely. You can go into Arsenal players next game week. It's better to have 2 free transfers if the moves for you are entirely luxury, and they are in your case. But anything you do, please do not vice captain or captain Raul. You've got Solanke as well, sorry, and I missed that out, but I think it could be a Salah captain, Solanke vice. If you really want a differential captain, captain Solanke, and that's all I will say. Thank you so much for the super chat, though. All right, back to chat. Otto with a super chat as well. Thank you very much. And actually, I did miss a super chat from Awab. I think the question, actually, no, I did answer that. So it was Smith Rowe or Semenyo over McNeil. Definitely Semenyo there. But sorry, Otto's question was play 2, Rogers, Colwell, Lewis, Captain Solanke, Salah, or Holland. I would easily play Colwell over Lewis because I still don't think Lewis is guaranteed to start. Even Luke mentioned that. I would play Rogers as well over... I would play Rogers over Lewis, to be honest, because with the uncertainty there, I think you guarantee 2 players who play the game. Rogers and Colwell is probably what I would do. Captain, Solanke, Salah, Holland. I wouldn't really consider Holland. I think it'd be Solanke versus Salah for me. I'm going for Salah because I still think he's objectively probably the better captain. But Solanke ultimately is going to be the free risk captain. So if you want to grab that sort of risk, there's that chance there and that opportunity to do so. I remember a couple of weeks ago, actually, there was Saka versus Holland, right? The 16-pointer versus the 2-pointer. That was another instance where there was free risk going for Saka captaincy. I didn't quite have the opportunity to do it, as I didn't have, what's down under or whatever was needed to make that decision. But some people did, and it worked out really well. But it can also go brutally wrong because you're betting against 100+% of the field, particularly with owning Salah. And you're taking maybe around 60% of Salah away from yourself. If you're comfortable with that, though, and you want to go with Solanke captain, I think that's viable. Maxence, thank you. Start Havertz. Thank you for the super chat as well. Start Havertz or Semenyo. Bench Semenyo 10 points last week. I mean, Havertz versus Chelsea, right? Ultimately, and he's away from home. So I personally would just play Semenyo. Semenyo is finally here with a good game on paper because let's be honest, this Brentford defense has been absolutely shocking. And Semenyo has played all the minutes that we could possibly want. I would just go with Semenyo quite easily here in this game week. And I don't even think that last week's decision or outcome has anything to do with that, by the way. I would just go Semenyo flat out. Why did I go with Wood? I liked the Rogers and Wood rotation. And I felt that if I went for someone like Welbeck, my concern with someone like Welbeck is, does he lose minutes over the horizon? Does he lose a little bit more minutes? And maybe that's my concern. Whereas with Wood, I feel like he's going to comfortably start for the foreseeable. Is Bruno a good differential? I think Bruno is absolutely a great differential. It's just that my team can't really afford going for Bruno because it doesn't quite make sense. Did you... Sorry. One of my friends just told me that he was going to do a free hit. Sorry. And I'm just laughing because why? Don't free hit, guys. Please do not free hit. You can consider this as genuine advice for myself, but I don't think it makes sense to free hit this game week. I'm a little bit weak right now. Sorry. Should I get Solanke this game week or think about something else to change? I would just go Solanke for DCL. It literally feels like such a good move. If I had the decision to make between selling DCL to Solanke, I wouldn't even be asking the question. I would just be making the transfer. That's how I feel about DCL to Solanke. Honestly, as a genuine move, like, it can't go wrong, basically. It just can't go wrong. Yeah, that's pretty much what I think about it. So I'm just going to quickly have a look at potential leaks as well for us so that we don't we don't stay in the dark, potentially. Um, doesn't seem like we actually have any leaks today, from what I'm kind of reading. Yeah, I think that's a bit unfortunate, but no leaks from what I can really see. Jackson to Solanke as a genuine move. I won't be there. I think that's fine. You can just hide behind the sofa. I do think it's a genuine move though, because the question is going to be always, fine. Jackson is an extremely high XGI sort of attacker. Yes, he's probably nailed over this period. He's an extremely fit player, and he won't have to deal with much of the rotation between Nkunku, and I don't think that's a problem. But yeah. Oh, I've also got to fill in my team. Um, all right. That unfortunately seems to be the reality, that there's no leaks. I was trying to look for if we have any potential leaks when it comes to Everton, and I can't quite see it. What I can see as a leak today is that Rorslev is benched from Brentford. So if that's a positive for Brentford defense, and you think that makes a difference for you guys out there who own Flecken, who own Pinnock, who own Vandenberg, that could be it. Is KDB back? Yes, but he's not going to. I don't think he's guaranteed to start. I think KDB is back in the team. He's back in the squad, but he could very easily just come off the bench once again. Hello, Fran. Start Smith Rowe or Rogers. I would probably go with Smith Rowe. I just think this is Rogers. Ultimately, look, Liverpool away might actually just be the worst fixture of the season for anyone. So if Rogers is going to score there and upset me once again tremendously, fine. Go ahead and do that, Morgan Rogers. But I think he's an easy bench for this game week. Not getting any late change of captaincy thoughts. I'm not on the train, unfortunately. I will be right back for 2 minutes, though. Unfortunately, I just have to do something. So I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay, sorry about that. I am back. Is McNeil fit? I'm not sure. I think Haaland's scoring a hat trick tonight. Alab says with a super chat. Thank you so much for the super chat, by the way. Look, for Haaland owners, I hope you guys get the hat trick because owning Haaland for the few weeks prior to when I sold him was pretty sad, and I'm sure he's due for some sort of major gigantic haul. If this is the one, then fair enough. Best of luck to yourself. All right, we got 11 minutes to go until the deadline. Captain Bruno or Solanke? I would probably go Solanke over Bruno personally. Flecken or Fabianski in goal. Thank you so much for the super chat, CMC Wookie. I would go Fabianski quite easily, right? The way I see it is it's a much better fixture because Everton are just a much more incompetent attack compared to Bournemouth, and Brentford's defense is appalling. And even though West Ham's might be as well, I don't think it's actually close. I think Fabianski is the one there. Did I miss your question, Jonah, in terms of a super chat question? Just looking at Discord, so just chats as well from members. Anderson, thank you for your super chat. Should I sell Holland to get Salah? Only way to fund it. I mean, that's what I did last week, right? The question I would ask you is it a -4 for yourself? Is it also a question of if you go for Salah this game week, do you also get rid of maybe another midfielder who you think is annoying for yourself? So let's say I got rid of Dibbling. I don't know if you're getting rid of someone this week who's a worse fixture. This way you can get someone in the forward position who has a good fixture, right? Like Cunha, like Strand Larson, that sort of thing. So I do think it's worth the move and definitely worthy of consideration for sure. I mean, it's what I did. Solanke captain for sure. A couple of people are going there. I still think I'm going to Salah captain, to be quite honest. Aaron asking the question of Rodgers versus a Delap start. I just think that Rodgers, as I said, ultimately has the worst fixture like on his calendar possible. So I would probably still go for a Delap start, but it's really not too crazy to go for Rodgers. I would just go for Delap, right? Rodgers has a little bit more ownership. Delap is going to be a differential for you. I know he did drop in price, but that doesn't change what he should effectively put out in terms of value for 80 minutes of football, right? And we know that you've got better chances anyways with Spurs potentially feeling a little bit weaker of a back line, just like they did in Europe. So I would probably go with Delap. Another question from Tropical Vibes through a super chat was DCL and Gabriel to Aitner and Strand Larson for -4. I like DCL to Strand Larson for -4. I do not like going out of Gabriel. Sorry, I like DCL to Strand Larson as a move. I don't like Gabriel to Aitner as a -4. So I would save the Gabriel move, just go DCL to Strand Larson, call it a day there. Philip says, Fran, would you play Rico Lewis over Gab, saying Rico starts? You have Raya. I would still probably play Gabriel. I'm not sure if Rico starts unless you're 100% sure about it. Start Lewis or Mikolenko. I would still start Mikolenko personally. Jay Wavy says he's done Dibbling to Salah and Holland Solanke. That makes sense. Really good move. And I do like Havertz to Pedro as well. Ali Hussein, too slick, says choose 3. Guardiola, Lewis, Gabriel, Keane. I would go with Guardiola, Gabriel, and I mean, Keane still has West Ham away. I would just about probably go... I don't know. I'd probably just go with Keane, just about. Yeah, I think Keane's fine. Similar sort of consideration to Mikalenko. The only thing I was thinking about was, is there a world where Keane is benched? And does that have an impact? Not really, I think. Keane is probably a 9 tier 0, I would say. More than likely that he starts, though, right? Because it seems like Sean Dyche has really found it hard to bench Michael Keane, so I just play Keane. Taylor, thanks for the super chat. Start Gabriel or Collins. I'd start Gabriel personally. I'd start Gabriel. It's a pretty close game, though, to be fair. I mean, actually, one thing I was going to ask you about Collins, right, is Collins' ownership is much lower. So maybe actually, if the if Collins is slightly worse than Gabriel, fine. But actually, maybe you would still like to play Collins because the ownership is much lower. So I would consider it. I don't think Lewis is guaranteed to start, by the way. But I think, Taylor, you need to think about the Gabriel versus Collins thing in terms of not just objectively how I think they're going to do. I think Arsenal have slightly better clean sheet odds, so that could give you an indication. But with Collins, maybe slightly worse clean sheet odds, yes. But the little positive that you actually have with Collins is the ownership is a bit lower. Who knows? It could actually give you a bit more upside. So if you kind of like grabbing that risk, and it kind of seems like free risk, go for it. Lewis or Aina, I'd definitely go Aina. DCL or Mikalenko first bench, I'd probably just DCL first bench. Are you crazy for... No, Bruno is not crazy at all. I think Bruno's a very solid pick. And, feel free to go for Bruno. When I look at my team, right, I am going to be sticking within a Salah, Palmer, and Saka or / Son structure for a while. So I can't go for Bruno. But if I didn't have Son, for example, now, I would be very comfortable going for Bruno, in my opinion. So that's the way I see it. Thoughts on Madison? You like him over Sar, but keep getting benched. I think Madison is a sell after this game week, basically, is pretty much how I feel about it. SSS, thank you so much for the super chat. I can't see if you've written a message, so if you plan to write a message, I'll try to look out for it. Why is Salah a good captaincy pick? Should I try Bruno as a captain? I mean, Salah is a good captaincy pick because it's Liverpool at Anfield, and even though Aston Villa have been a pretty decent defense, he's him, right? So my issue with Son is it seems like his minutes are a little bit reduced, so I don't have that sort of faith in terms of going there. And then with Solanke, I don't think he's a penalty taker, so there's not that sort of additional value with Salah. And Liverpool have just been playing amazing, right? Like, we probably still consider Leverkusen a good team. They absolutely obliterated them. They've just been really, really solid. Salah's minutes are absolutely there compared to Son's. And ultimately, this is a game week where not many people have good fixtures, right? Haaland is still versus Brighton, but it's still an away game. And home and away always makes a huge difference. Yeah, this is my final team. I am probably not going to make a single move on top of it, so we're going to call it a day there. Play Lewis or Milenkovic. I would play Milenkovic. Hi, Fran, start one. Gabriel, Lewis, or Milenkovic. I would probably once again start Milenkovic. Milenkovic for the reason where he's the least owned option, and he also probably has equivalent clean sheet odds to Gabriel, and I can't guarantee a Lewis start. Why would this game week? Because my plan in the future is to just rotate. So this is Wood's bad fixtures, right? Arsenal's a bad fixture. City's a bad fixture. Arguably, maybe Man United away is a bad fixture. After that, I think the fixtures are okay. Whereas I will just play Rodgers here, and I'll play Rodgers here. And that's pretty much how it's going to work with Lewis. Oh, sorry, Wood and Rodgers. So that's going to be the rotation. And then I'm going to be playing Cunha every single... Excuse me. I'm going to play Cunha every single week. So that's the plan. Start Guardiola or DCL? I'd start Guardiola. Start Lewis or Gabriel? I'd start Gabriel probably. I mean, I've got Lewis and Gabriel on my team, so I don't have to make that decision, but I definitely would have started Gabriel over Lewis because one person you can guarantee the minutes, the other person you can't. Please captain Solanke versus Haaland. I would go Solanke, and I would actually take the risk in that circumstance. I feel like Salah is a slightly better captaincy than Haaland, which is why I still have Salah as my captain. I think DCL is going to start, by the way. But yeah, that's just something for you guys. Start Hall or Davis. I'd probably start Hall quite easily. Bruno is totally fine as a captain, as I said. You don't have to spam it in chat. I've already answered that one. Vardy or McNeil, I'd probably start Vardy. And that's, guys, you got to make your moves in the next 20 seconds now. Captain Son, good luck with that for people who are doing that. I'm just going to quickly refresh my team just to make sure it's the same team. All good. Seems like we're fine. Hi, Fran. Your question is, keep Haaland or transfer Dibbling and Haaland out for Son? I'd probably transfer him out, to be honest. Dibbling out is a very, very good transfer, but yeah, sorry, that's the deadline. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for being in the chat. Hope you guys have a wonderful game week. I'm going to probably start my weekend a little bit of a delayed start anyways, but yeah, as I said, take care, enjoy the football. I'll see you guys soon. I'll be watching the 3 p.m. games right now anyways, so take care. And